team like Kyrie and KD, or the Lake Show with King James and AD. Wish I could match him up with the bad boys from the 80s, but no black and white, I need that in HD. HenDawgz.
Yo, what's good, y'all? It's your boy HenDawgz, and we back to it. You know how we do it. Another day, another reaction video, man. Shout out to all the new subscribers, shout out to all the old subscribers, and shout out to all the people that's about to subscribe after watching this dope video that we're about to watch. We're about to get into the NBA myths we all thought were true. And I have no expectations for this video. I have no idea what this video is going to be about. I'm trying to kind of guess it a little bit, but let's just get into it. I think that's the best way to find out what this video is about. So before we get into it, go ahead and subscribe, man. Hit that button. We're trying to get the 10K. But let's get into it, man. NBA myths we all thought were true. Let's get it.
1985, a rookie Michael Jordan entered the NBA Slam Dunk Contest. At the time, he was only a few months into his NBA career, but MJ already had millions of fans in the palm of his hand. Michael was the future, and everyone knew it. And to pay homage to his childhood idol Julius Erving, Michael pulled off a dunk that would inevitably become his trademark.
Hold on, before we get into this, I want to reiterate what I've been saying in my Dr. J videos. Dr. J is your favorite player's favorite player.
A dunk from the free throw line, and on his very first attempt, Michael pulled it off. An incredible, gravity-defying dunk. Fans were amazed, judges were impressed, and Michael Jordan came in second. And he took that personally. So 2 years later in 1987, Michael Jordan made his return to the dunk contest, and this time, he put it all on the table with one of the greatest dunk contest performances in NBA history.
So he lost in his rookie year to who? Write in the comments. Was it to Dominique? I'm not 100% sure, but put in the comments who he lost to in his rookie year. But he said he took it personally. You know how Jordan is.
MJ went home as the NBA dunk contest champion, but not before pulling off arguably the most iconic dunk in basketball history. Another free throw line dunk, but this wasn't like any that came before it. To this day, when most players do free throw line dunks, they really have to reach and strain themselves to get the ball to the hoop. But what MJ did in '87 was graceful. It was effortless. It looked like the man was literally floating. When fans saw this dunk, they no longer thought MJ was some sort of basketball sorcerer who figured out how to levitate in midair. They were certain of it. MJ's hang time was, and still is, like nothing else we've ever seen. The man's ability to just hang in the air was almost too good to be true. And that's because it wasn't true. Not the jumping part, but the hanging part. Because contrary to popular belief, it is impossible for an athlete to hang in midair, even for a fraction of a second. The concept of an athlete's hang time is a myth. Back in 2007, a show called Sports Science paired up with former NBA player Jordan Farmar to test the theory of hang time. At the time, Jordan had a vertical leap.
So we're trying to figure out the hang time of Michael Jordan by testing out Jordan Farmar. I don't know. Let me keep watching.
Of 42 inches, and they put this vertical to the test by attaching trackers to his body and pressure-sensitive insoles into his shoes to measure his jumps. And what they found was that no matter where he jumped from, no matter how high he jumped, and no matter how he maneuvered his body in the air, his ascent was always exactly the same amount of time as his descent.
That's interesting.
With no pause or stall or hang time in between. When you see a player who seems to be hanging in midair, what you're really seeing is actually a bit of an illusion.
While mid-flight body contortions cannot affect their overall flight, when elite players like Michael Jordan begin their descent, their body stretches, which keeps their head moving horizontally for an extra split second. This creates the optical illusion of prolonged hang time.
Now,
so basically what they're saying is, I'm gonna let them do it because they're the science guys. But they're basically saying there's no such thing as hang time. There's no such thing as hanging in the air. Like everything that goes up must come down. Basically, is what they're saying.
I cannot begin to tell you how devastated I was when I watched this episode of Sports Science as a kid. This is unbelievable. Next thing you know, someone's gonna tell me Michael Jordan didn't actually stretch out his arm 25 feet to score a last-second bucket to defeat the Monstars. But you can't ignore the facts. So, as great as this dunk was, it wasn't great enough to defy the laws of physics. And the concept of hang time was all just a myth. Just like many other narratives and concepts within the NBA that we've been led to believe for years.
Okay. I like that.
Today's
So that's the
video is
first
sponsored
myth.
by Keeps.
Okay.
Keeps is a subscription-based service that focuses on making it easier and more
Keeps ain't
affordable
paying.
for...
Keeps not paying us, so we're not about to let them get this free advertisement. But I'm gonna pause it once we get to the
NBA. There have
So yeah, so I guess the first myth, I think this is gonna be a pretty dope video to see what the myths, everybody thought that was just so true in the NBA that actually wasn't true. The first myth that there's no hang time and like there's no such thing as a player hanging in the air for a long period of time. And that's interesting because you always would think like his hang time is crazy, but he's just jumping and stretching out for a longer period of time. But that's kind of crazy though. Hey.
have been some incredible stories. Stuff that is so incredible that it sounds mythical. And that's because it is. When an old tale or an exaggerated recollection of events takes hold within NBA fandom, it virtually becomes a matter of fact.
Oh.
But today we are going to find the truth behind some of these myths. Now, growing up years ago, it was just a matter of fact that Larry Bird was the greatest three-point shooter of all time. We all knew it, and we'd all heard the stories from those who watched the man play. I mean, the dude won 3 straight three-point contests, including one where he didn't even take his warm-up off.
That ain't a
And
myth.
to this day, some fans will attest that Larry Bird is still one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time, most agreeing that he's top 3: Steph, Ray Allen, and Larry Bird. But this, my friends, is a myth. For his time, Larry Bird was an excellent three-point shooter. But fast forward 35 years, and there have been dozens and dozens of players who have surpassed Bird in his shooting.
Bird gang, where y'all at? Tap in with me. Tap in. It's some Bird content. So let's see what they talking about. But I think this is kind of a diss to Larry Bird a little bit. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this.
Check this out. Here's a chart of the best three-point shooters of all time. The further right a player is, the more efficient they were. And the higher up, the more threes that player made each game. All the way at the top is, of course, Stephen Curry on his own planet. And then you have
That's
Klay
not a myth.
Thompson,
Only
Buddy Hield,
best shooter
Damian
is of all
Lillard,
time.
James
Steph
Harden.
Curry.
This list includes hundreds of players since the three-point line was added to the NBA. Down here is Larry Bird. Now, of course, Bird played in an era where players shot far less threes.
Right,
and for
right.
his time, he was one of the best long-range shooters. But times have changed. Drastically. Sure, if Bird played in today's league, he would practice shooting more threes, he'd play in a system that valued the three-pointer more, and he would have simply shot more threes. But Larry Bird doesn't play in today's league. And just based off the facts, there are countless players that are simply better three-point shooters than Bird was. Now, this
crazy.
next myth is one that has ran rampant over the last few years.
Hey, let me know what y'all think about that. I think that's a terrible analogy. I think if Larry Bird was in today's game, he would definitely be one of the greatest shooters ever. But basically, they're saying by stats, But looking at the stats, Larry Bird is nowhere near one of the greatest shooters of all time. But let me know what y'all think, man. Let me know.
And quite frankly, I'm sick of it. Every offseason, NBA fans all over social media lose their minds over Instagram and Twitter videos of NBA players who've improved their game, specifically their shooting. Every summer, clips of NBA players not missing a shot or going berserk in a training session go viral, and immediately fans believe these players have revolutionized their entire game. If I have to watch one more video of Ben Simmons sinking 8 straight three-pointers in an empty gym and then reading comments about how he's got a three-point shot,
Shout out to Ben Simmons just getting traded to the Brooklyn Nets too for James Harden. That's a super crazy trade, and that happened today. So gotta throw that out there. But yeah, I get where he going with this.
now, I think I'm gonna lose my mind. Don't get me wrong, back when these off-season videos first began to surface a few years ago, some of these guys had me fooled. Andre Drummond's got his free throws down, some player added 15 pounds of muscle in the off-season and their game has completely transformed. Ben Simmons can now shoot the three ball.
Not even.
You want to know why Ben Simmons is drilling threes like he's Stephen Curry's long-lost brother in his off-season clips? Because he's in an empty gym with zero pressure and piss-poor defense or literally no defense on him at all. 99% of NBA players knock down damn near every shot they take in practice. They are all automatic in open runs against players you've never heard of. And time again, we are shown that these off-season clips do not translate to the NBA season. I think Lonzo Ball may be the only player in recent history to actually vastly improve his shot over the course of one offseason. We have got to stop taking these off-season clips so seriously. It's just practice. Every NBA player looks like a god when they're getting open shots up. And no, Ben Simmons cannot shoot the three despite the 30-second shooting clinic he posted on his Instagram. Now, the average height of an NBA player is 6'7" tall, which is really, really tall.
That's crazy.
In fact, the average NBA player is taller than 99.99% of all males in the United States.
That's wild. But we're gonna go back to the last point he was making, and that's a real good point, man. Like, just because you see these NBA players making 10, 15 shots, by themselves in the gym, like that does not mean like they're automatically about to be like a great shooter in that next season. Like that's a real good myth that I think a lot of people got to start realizing. Like, just because Ben Simmons is making 10 shots in a row, that don't mean that next season he's about to be a 40% three-point shooter. Like just slow down a little bit. I think it's the world of social media right now and how everything is recorded that. You would think that, but
that means
some of that stuff is not what it
seems. If you
seems.
gathered 1,000 random men, odds are only one of them will be as tall as the average NBA player. And knowing this, it kind of blows my mind when people say you don't need to be tall to play in the NBA. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a myth. Take me, for example. I'm 6'1", and being around basketball my entire life, I've never considered myself to be tall by any stretch of the imagination. But generally speaking, I'm still taller than about 93% of men within the United States. Now, out of the 590 players currently active in the NBA, take a wild guess at how many of them are my height or shorter. 40. There are 40 players in the entire NBA that are 6 feet 1 inches tall or shorter, which means I quickly go from being taller than about 93% of men in the general population to taller than just 2% of players in the NBA. But it gets worse, because the average height for a male in the US is 5'9", which means that an average sized man would literally be the shortest player in the NBA. But he wouldn't be the shortest player in NBA history. Of the 35...
It's funny, you bring up a good point, because, I'm 6'2", and there's a lot of times where I go around, a group of people or, a group, and I'm the tallest person there, and people, you tall, bro, like, you must play basketball. But when I'm around my teammates, growing up, when I played at Bowling Green, when I was at Start, for the most part, when I played professionally, I was always one of the shorter guys. So it is crazy how it's like, levels to the height. Like I'm tall in certain situations and I'm short in basketball situations.
NBA, only 11 of them were 5'9" or shorter. Wow. That's 0.3%. Less than half of 1% of all NBA players since 1977 have been average in stature. Look at how minuscule Nate Robinson looks against most NBA players. The man is 5'9".
He got heart, though.
This is what an average guy would look like in the NBA.
He got heart.
As if the astronomical chances of making it to the league weren't difficult enough, not being tall makes this immense goal next to impossible. So yes, you do need to be tall to play in the NBA. Well, either that or be an absolute anomaly of an athlete. An athlete like Spud Webb or Nate Robinson or Michael Jordan. Except Michael Jordan wasn't only a freak athlete. He was also 6'6". A combination of attributes and physical gifts that eventually made him the greatest basketball player of all time. And decades after Jordan's retirement from the game, his legend continues to grow. The man went 6-0 in the finals throughout his career, but many say that if he didn't retire the first time in 1993, Michael and the Bulls would have won 8 straight championships. But this is a massive myth. You see, that's impossible, because Jordan did lose in the playoffs to the Orlando Magic. Not in the finals, not in the...
That's a myth, y'all. Write in the comments. It's a myth that if I've definitely heard that from a lot of people. Like, if Jordan wouldn't have retired, he would have won 8 straight. Like, exactly what they said. He said, no, that's a myth. So write in the comments what y'all think about that. Let's see what they talk about.
Conference finals, but in the second round of the playoffs. So there's really no need to theorize if the Bulls would have won 8 straight titles, since we literally saw Michael and the Bulls lose right in the middle of their decade-long run. And I know what some of you are thinking. When Michael returned to the NBA in 1995, he wasn't in basketball shape, and he didn't have enough time to get reacclimated to playing basketball by the time the playoffs came around. And although there's some truth to this, I'd be more inclined to agree if MJ didn't average 31, 7, and 5 a game against Orlando in that series.
Crazy.
In fact, MJ had better numbers in the playoffs right after his return in 1995 than he had in the following season after being back for a season and a half. People act like he was a shell of himself in his return, when in reality he was about 95% himself in those playoffs. The truth is, after losing Horace Grant in the 94 offseason, the Bulls struggled against teams with prolific big men. And when the Bulls met a prime Shaquille O'Neal and the Magic in the playoffs, this weakness was put on full display in a 6-game series. Even if the Bulls made it past Orlando, they would have had to go through the Knicks, who were just as deep in the front court. And eventually they would have had to face the Rockets, who were the most complete team in the league that season, with one of the greatest big men of all time. Even if the Bulls had Michael in 94 and the entirety of the 95 season, they just didn't have the roster to outmatch some of the other teams at the time. Not to mention that time and time again, we are shown that winning multiple championships in a row has massive effects on teams. Between injuries, contracts, and player retention, winning championships isn't as simple as just having the talent. The Warriors assembled the damn Justice League for a few seasons, and they still couldn't win 3 in a row. Kobe and Shaq were the best duo in league history, but after three-peating, they just couldn't replicate the magic they once had. I'd even go as far as saying Michael Jordan retiring in 93 was the best thing he could have done for his legacy. By the time he came back, he was rejuvenated, he was motivated, and the Bulls had made the necessary offseason moves to make them the overwhelming favorite again. So the next time you hear a crazy story or some stat that sounds too good to be true, it's probably because it isn't true. When a player reaches greatness, he becomes the man, the myth, and the legend. You just gotta know which is which. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time.
100. Hey, I like that video. I enjoyed that. Because that kind of just questions, you know, a lot of the stuff that you didn't actually witness. You know, stuff that you just kind of just always hear. You just let it go because that's what you're used to hearing. But that video was like, no, let's kind of question these, you know, these things we always hear, and a lot of them was myths. So I hope y'all enjoyed that video. I know I did. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel if y'all want to see me do more videos like this. Make sure y'all like this video if you like this video, and write something in the comments, man. Write if you think that some of them actually were true. You know, actually, if you don't, like, that wasn't a myth, like that actually would have happened. Like, let me know what y'all think about that. Write them in the comments. But I appreciate y'all like always, man. We out.